Hello, my name is Catherine. This is the information session for the 50 affordable rental units that are going to be offered at Lore in Salem. And the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the available apartments. I'm also going to cover the application, the eligibility, and the lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery is run. So if you have any questions, if you're reviewing this session after the fact, if you have any questions, you can either email us, and our email address is here, so info@scbhousing.com, or you can give us a call. If you have any questions that either weren't covered in this session or you don't see the answer in the information packet that's available on our website. So just for some background information on who we are. So SCB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We're not the on-site management team. We're not at the building. We haven't seen the building in person. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, and we'll also be the ones collecting and reviewing the lottery application to determine an applicant's eligibility. And then eventually we'll be running the lottery as well. So in the initial phases of this process, we are your main point of contact. Later in the process, if you are found to be eligible for the affordable housing program, and you are one of the top households on the waiting list, you'll be sent over to the leasing office at Lore, and you'll be able to move on to the next step with them, which will be to qualify for a lease at their property. Once your lease eligibility has been determined, you will be invited to complete a program certification, so you'll kind of be referred back to SCB Housing after that, and that's the point in the process where you'll need to submit your supporting documentations like pay stubs and things like that. But to get into this lottery, you don't need to supply any income verifying information. You just need to submit the lottery application. You're self-reporting what your income is and your assets and all of that. And that's really the only thing you need to do to get into the lottery itself. So if you haven't already, we encourage you to go onto our website, scbhousing.com. And if you click on our webpage, if you click on where it says, I want to rent, and select Lore, you're going to be taken to a page specific to this property. And it's going to have a downloadable version of this application, as well as the information packet. And there's also the online application link. So that's on your screen right now too. That jot form link is where you can complete the online application. We encourage everybody to complete it online if you can. It will be the quickest way to ensure that your application gets received. If for any reason the online application isn't an option for you, you can download a PDF of the lottery application on our website, and you'll be able to send it to us by email, or you can mail it to us as well. So whichever one of those options works best for you. But again, we do encourage you to try to complete the application online if you can. If you do complete it online, you're going to get an instantaneous email back saying that it was received. But then a week or two later, once we have reviewed all of the applications that have come in over the last few days, you will get a more personalized email from us letting you know if you qualify for the lottery. We do encourage you to get your lottery application in early if you think you're going to be interested in this opportunity. The application deadline is 2 p.m. on August 4th, so a little bit less than a month left to get your lottery application in. The online application form will no longer be active as of 2 p.m. on August 4th, so that's why there's that hard deadline there. You don't need to be a resident of Salem to apply for the lottery. There are going to be some units that are some waiting lists that have priority for Salem residents, but that should not deter you from applying at all. So Lore is a new property in Salem. There's going to be, like I said, the 50 affordable units, and there's 6 studio units. Those have 1 bathroom. The rent will be $1,689. The 1 bedrooms have 1 bathroom. There's 21 of those, and the rent's going to be $1,930. There's 21 2-bedroom, 2-bathrooms, and the rent will be $2,172. There is free surface parking included for residents, and it will be first come, first serve. All the utilities are included. That includes heating, cooling, cooking, hot water, electricity, water, sewer. Those are all included in the rent, which is unusual and a great deal for a resident. Each of the apartments also has a in-unit laundry, so there is a washer and dryer in each unit. There's also community amenities, including a fitness center, an outdoor pool, grilling station, pet spa, roof deck, a lounge in the main area. The rents that I mentioned are not set in accordance with an applicant's income or financial circumstances. So those rents will not change based on whether or not how much you are earning. They could change once per year. Usually any changes are made to the rent when HUD, which is the Federal Housing and Urban Development, when they release their area median income for the Salem, Boston area. The amounts could be revised at that time, but your rent will never change within a lease term. So if you were to sign a lease in September for an apartment at Lore, your rent is going to be the same for at least 12 months, and you would get advance notice of any changes to that. And so since we know there's going to be more interested in eligible applicants than there are available units, these apartments are being made available through this lottery process to households with incomes at or below 60% of the area median income for the Salem, Boston area. So those area median income amounts are here. That's one of the eligibility requirements for this affordable housing program. So households, in order to qualify for the affordable housing program and for this lottery, your household would need to have income amounts that are between what you're seeing on your screen. So there's approximate minimum income amounts here that are set by each development. So the management team at Lore wants to be sure that renters are able to afford the rent, whether or not they are renting a market rate or an affordable unit. So if you're a one-person household and you're looking to rent an apartment at Lore, you would need to have a total household annual income between about $50,000, but not exceeding $67,578. So the maximum income limits that you see in this top box here, this top chart, those are set in stone. They are program requirements, whereas there's a little bit of wiggle room to be had with the minimum income amount, because the management team over at Lore, if they're deciding whether or not, or they're interviewing you to see if you are eligible for a lease at their property, they might see that you have some liquid assets, you have money in the bank that you're able to access to potentially pay rent. You could have an income that is slightly below this amount. The only households that do not need to worry about this minimum income amount at all are households that have a mobile housing voucher. So if you have a Section 8 or an MRBP voucher that you plan on using at the property, you can have an income that is below these amounts, and that's because the voucher agency that is administering your voucher is going to pay a portion of your rent, regardless of what your income is. So just keep that in mind. Also, for eligibility purposes, priority is going to be given based on household size. So if you are a one-person household, you can't apply for, you are generally considered to be a type 1 household. So you can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but larger type 2 households, or just households who have more household members, are going to be placed ahead of you on the 2-bedroom waiting list. That's because the affordable housing program likes to make sure that that households are not having priority for units that they may not need the size of. So like a one-person household occupying a bedroom unit over a family that might need that larger bedroom size. The family will have priority on that waiting list. You also can't own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home now, you would need to sell the home by the time you are doing your program certification with SCB Housing. And then it doesn't come up often, but households can't have financial interest in the development and can't be considered a related party. So if you work for the developer or if you work for the management team, you might not be eligible for this opportunity. And so I mentioned that income verification is not needed with your lottery application. I still want to make sure that I go over a little bit of how SCB Housing is going to be counting your income when the time comes. So income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So, you know, when you're submitting pay stubs, we're going to be asking questions if there is, you know, amounts on there that we need clarification on. And the only income that we will not be counting is if you have a dependent full-time student in the household, so someone who maybe is a college student that's earning a wage, we're only going to be counting the first $480 of their income. And also if you have a minor in the household, so maybe you have a 15 or 16-year-old working, we're not going to count any of their wages at all when we are determining your eligibility for the program. The program does require us to count gross income, not net. So the amount you make before taxes is what we need to count, although, you know, most of us are not taking home the full amount of a salary. So just keep that in mind as well. And then how we calculate income is a little bit different depending on what your circumstances are. So there's some applicants who have that steady weekly salary that is consistent throughout the year. Your pay stubs are the same every week or bi-weekly. But some people are self-employed or working seasonally. So if that's the case, we might need to look further into the past to be able to project what your anticipated income is for the next 12 months. And then if you're self-employed, we're going to need a profit and loss statement from you. So your business expenses, if you are self-employed, will be taken into consideration. But in general, any income you have been making, we're going to need to assume that you're going to be making it going forward as well, unless we have some sort of definitive documentation from you confirming that you're no longer working a job, for example, or that maybe, you know, overtime isn't allowed in the next year or whatever it might be. So when you're filling out that lottery application, just make sure that you are completing it with making sure that you're listing all of the income coming into your household. So that could be wages. It could also be if any household member is receiving Social Security, unemployment, pensions, that sort of thing. Just make sure it's all accounted for there. There's no minimum or there's no maximum asset limit for the program. So, you know, maybe you're retired, you have a significant amount of assets in the bank, that's fine. There is no asset limit, but we will still need to collect information related to your assets. So if you have bank accounts, we're going to need bank statements from you. And that's because if there's any income that's being generated by those assets, we would need to count it towards your total household income. So when you're completing the application, either online or the physical application, just make sure that you are filling it out to the best of your knowledge. So if you have any retirement accounts or checking savings accounts, that sort of thing, it's all listed on there. So in terms of the lottery, as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in this opportunity, we do suggest that you start the process as early as possible. Just submit your application either online or by downloading that PDF. And then if you are interested in more than one unit size, you should apply for all of them. So if you're interested in both a studio and a one-bedroom, you should indicate that on your application. There's no downside to doing so, but there could be a downside if you only apply for a one-bedroom, for example, and then you later decide that you may have considered a studio. And the reason for that is because the waiting lists that are going to be compiled after the lottery might be quite long. So if you decide later that you would like to be on the studio list, you're going to be at the bottom of that list if you didn't indicate on your lottery application that you'd be interested in the studio. So when you're filling it out, just apply for any of the units that you might be interested in. So once we get your lottery application, we're going to contact you if any information appears to be missing or incorrect. You'll have a chance to resubmit it. If you're submitting that lottery application online, like I said, you're going to get that automatic confirmation that it was received, but you will get a follow-up email from us a little bit later just confirming whether or not you appear to be eligible for the lottery. If you're found to be eligible for the lottery, you're going to get that email that has your lottery application number. It will be in the form of A.001, for example. So if you were the first person to submit an application and be approved for LOR, your lottery application number would be A.001. It's not a ranking of any sort. That's just the number that you want to keep handy because it will be your number in the lottery so that we're not calling first and last names just to protect your privacy during the lottery. That email is also going to confirm whether or not you reported that you are a resident of Salem or that you have a household member who works full-time in Salem. So applicants who have indicated that they either live or work full-time in Salem or have a child going to Salem Public Schools, you could be considered to be a local household or local preference household. And so you want to be sure that when you are completing your application, you're filling that out accurately because there are some waiting lists that you might have priority on. When you get that email with your lottery application number, it's also going to have an attachment that's called a documentation requirements guide. So that's just really a guide that is providing details on all of the items that you will need to submit prior to getting your final eligibility from SCB Housing. So we suggest you just review that guide so you're aware of the documents that you will be required to submit to us if you are selected to move forward with reserving a unit. So how many pay stubs, it's going to tell you how many bank statements, that sort of thing. And then of course, if you're found to be ineligible at any point during this process, maybe you're over income, you'll be informed by email and you're encouraged to contact us with any questions because we want to make sure that you understand the reason for that denial, of course. The lottery will take place a couple of weeks after the application period closes. So again, you have until August 4th to get your lottery application in. The lottery itself will be held on August 18th at 6 p.m. It's similar to this session where it will be a Zoom session where will be a screen share, so you're able to see the lottery taking place because it will be done electronically. So you'll be able to see it happening in real time. Attendance at that, though, is not required. So all applicants are going to be notified of the results after the lottery, usually that same evening. And if you do attend the lottery, you're not going to know your placement on the waiting list during the lottery itself. First, we have to sort the results onto the waiting list based on the different household priority and local priorities as well. So what I mean by that is if you're a one-person household and you applied for a two-bedroom, we still need to sort everything and see how many type 2 households are ahead of you on the waiting list, for example. So when we do the lottery, every number is drawn. Sometimes you think, there's 50 units, so there's going to be 50 numbers drawn, but that wouldn't be the case here because the purpose of the lottery is to establish an order of priority for the waiting list. Generally, it's more beneficial if your number is called earlier, but again, we would still need to sort the results to confirm where you are on that waiting list. So even if a number is called first, maybe your number is called first, but you're a type 1 household and you applied for that 2-bedroom, you're not going to be number 1 on any list because you don't have priority for a 2-bedroom, for example. So just keep that in mind. And then, like I said, right after the lottery, we make sure that we send those results to everyone right away. And typically that's no later than the morning after the lottery. It's usually actually the same evening. So you don't have to wait too long if you are curious about where you stand in the process. After the lottery, the top households on each waiting list will be invited to apply for a lease, which is the next step in the process after the lottery. So that's when you'll be put in touch with the leasing office to complete their lease application. Usually that, involves credit history check, reference checks, background checks, that sort of thing. And you'll have about 5 days to get in touch with them and do that screening. Just again, that lease screening is separate from SCB housing screening. So we're screening for your program eligibility, whereas the leasing office is screening for your whether or not you're qualified to lease at their property. So once your lease approved, that's the point in the process where if you're towards the top of the waiting list, that's going to be beneficial to you, because if you're at the top of the 2-bedroom waiting list, for example, you're going to have first priority or first chance to select a 2-bedroom apartment. So you'll be able to make a decision based off of what your priorities are. So maybe you want a 2-bedroom that is on the first floor, for example. You would be able to make that decision ahead of anybody else on the waiting list. And then once you've selected a unit, the second person on the waiting list who's been lease approved will be able to select a unit, and so on. Once you've reserved an apartment, the leasing office is going to notify us at SCB Housing, and you'll be in contact with us to coordinate your submission of all of your verifying documents. So your pay stubs, any income, asset, and tax documentation that we'll need to complete your final eligibility review. So hopefully by that point, you've been able to look at the documentation requirements guide and confirm what you need to send over to us. And you'll have about 10 days to do that. There's a lot of information that needs to come in, so we always make sure that we work with everyone. If you don't have everything provided to us on your first attempt, you're just going to be sent an incomplete notice by email and given another date by which to get that information into us. So no worries if you're not able to get that information to us all in the first try. We'll work with you. And once we approve your file, you'll be notified, and eligible households will be able to sign leases and establish a move-in date again with the leasing office. So once you're leased, you're done with your income screening until a lease renewal date. So if you rent one of these units, we hope that you love living there, you want to continue living there beyond the first year of the lease. If you do want to continue living there, you'll just need to recertify your income with the leasing office prior to your lease renewal. So again, if you were to sign a lease for September 1st of this year at Lohr, you would be contacted by the leasing office probably around June or so to begin the recertification process. If your income has increased during the year and you're now above that 60% of the area median income amount that you needed to be under to qualify for this lottery, that's okay, because households remain eligible for the affordable apartment they're living in, as long as your income doesn't exceed 140% of the current year's area median income. So to give you an idea of that, a household of 2 would have qualified for this lottery if your income was below $77,232, but that same family can make up to $108,125 at the time of the recertification in order to remain eligible and continue renting the affordable apartment at that affordable price. So just be aware that there's some wiggle room there. If you get a raise or if your household income increases, you're still able to rent that apartment at that affordable price. So that about covers what I wanted to get through from the information packet. Let me know if you have any questions, or anyone who's reviewing or anyone who's watching this recording after the fact. Please feel free to email us at info@scbhousing.com with any questions you have, and we'll be able to get back to you within a few hours usually. Any questions before I end the call? We look forward to getting your applications, and we're available for any questions. Again, the online application form is this hyperlink here, this JOT form. link that you will see on the website. If you go to sebhousing.com, that link is there as well. And that's the online application that we encourage everyone to utilize. All right. We look forward to getting your application again. Have a good night.